Hi YouTube, Darth here. Welcome to Over Your Shoulder, a weekly series where I follow an unsuspecting player and give unsolicited advice. This week I'm following EvilJenius, who did well in the previous match, but let's see how EvilJenius fares on Shanghai. Enjoy! Alright, EvilJenius is in the tank, and he is tanking with the canister shell and who knows what else. I'm not a big fan of the canister shell simply because it requires switching time from the main HE shell in this case, and the canister shell, while good, I'd rather just get that quick follow-up shot with the LMG or the HMG. The other problem I have with the canister shell is that the reload time doesn't leave a lot of margin for error, simply because if you miss a shot, then you have to wait for that follow-up shot. Alright, so we're sticking here, gonna cap the flag. Looks like we've got Flir is the secondary, or is the site rather. The B point on Shanghai has a very large capture radius, so I'm a fan of trying to peek that bridge while I'm capturing it. You never know when an enemy vehicle is going to go 100 miles per hour and try cruising over to B. Alright, let's look at the tabletop, see what's going on the other side. Looks like the red team has already taken Charlie. Not that much of a threat to the tank most of the time. I think the bigger problem is he has nobody supporting him and he's about to face off against 4 pieces of armor. That's going to be big trouble here, especially if he gets aggressive. I think this is one of those opportunities where you want to look at your map and see what your situation is like before you try and proceed over here. In this case, it would have been better to play it slow. No, he's already down 20 damage simply because he's taking shots from the helicopter, and now he's down another 20. Pops the APS in time. Now, and his active protection system bugs out, and he dies. So, the APS was on in that case, which is great, but, man, I'm really tired of the APS just screwing up. There have been so many circumstances in the last couple of days where I've been in a tank and I've turned on APS and it just hasn't done anything. It seems like to get the APS to work you have to be perfectly still. Alright, EvilJenius is back, we're in the helicopter. This is actually one of my favorite maps to do helicopter on, simply because there's enough buildings that you can skirt away from all the stingers, SAMs, whatever that is trying to shoot at you by hiding behind the buildings. EvilJenius comes up with a quick tank kill there and gets a little bit low. I'm not a big fan of getting super low in the helicopter on this map, simply because there are enough tanks on this map that when you get low in the helicopter like that, you become an easy target for all of those tanks. And again, he's getting a little bit low here, and at this point, until he clears this building here, is a point at which he could have been killed by either of those 2 tanks if they had been paying attention. Good on here reloading his rockets. If you ever have a free moment in the helicopter, be sure to tap R just to make sure that your ammo reserves are full. Coming in on these tanks, which is good. I like to use the helicopter on this map for 2 main purposes. Number 1, clear out any enemy armor that's on the map, and number 2, to help clear out C, because your gunner can really chew up C, because there isn't a whole lot of cover for people to hide from you right there. Sounds like his gunner has a lock-on missile, which he's not really helping him out much with. See, now you're being dangerous, because you're getting close to putting yourself in range of that tank. Could have been killed right there again. Like, this is flying a little bit too low for too long of a period of time. I like to drop off the ammo and get out of there as quick as possible. But he manages to come up with the kill anyways. I'd like to point out that earlier when that tank had its active protection system on and the green light was showing on it, that you're wasting any ammo you fire at it. Crash. And that's the problem with flying low and fast on this map, is you're going to end up getting shot by somebody and careening into a building just like that. Alright, back with EvilJenius in a tank. So you remember he has the canister shell and the HE shell. In the last few days I've become a big fan of the HE shell because its damage capability against even the front armor of a tank reduces the shots to kill by at least 1. However, I still prefer sabot shell on large maps simply because it's a little bit more difficult to land that HE shell at long range, especially because it flies slower. And there, let's see what the overall tactical situation or strategic situation looks like. It looks like it's not going well for blue right now. They've got 4 buildings capped against them. They've got a bunch of infantry spawning here on the left side. Yeah, and that right there is why I'm not a big fan of the canister shell, because you have to wait. I prefer the machine guns on the tank simply because they let you miss a shot and still be able to continue shooting. Now he's at 21 health, so whatever the next shot is going to kill him, and it does. Once you hit 40 health, you need to start thinking about, is it time to back away, is it time to play it slower, and in either case, it's probably a good idea to get some repairs going. Alright, now EvilJenius is the gunner in this helicopter. As a gunner, one of the things I like to do, if I'm in voice comms with my pilot, I like to keep him appraised of where everything is, and at the very least, I like to, if I'm not in comms, tell him that I have a TV missile so he can line me up for better shots, because most pilots like to angle their nose down, which makes TVs very hard. The first question you should be asking yourself when you get in the helicopter is, where is the enemy helicopter? It's your number one threat on this map, and honestly, you probably shouldn't be considering ground targets until it's out of the air. It looks like EvilJenius and his pilot missed this helicopter the entire time, and initiative is really important on this map. As you can see, if you don't shoot first, you're probably going to be the one who dies. So EvilJenius is kind of having a bad time of this. He did well last round, but not so much this round. Now we are in the gunner position of the transport helicopter, one of my favorite weapons now after they had buffed it. Doing a very good maneuver here, spotting the empty enemy tank on this point and taking it. This is one of my favorite tactics on any point in the game. If you see that there's enemy armor up and nobody's taking it, you should just try to get it as quickly as possible, because you can end up causing a lot of damage. Missed that first shot. Getting as behind cover as you possibly can here. Managed to hit with the second shot, although I think that's a little bit of a questionable shot. And got that second shot in. All he needs is one more, and that LAV is history. Nope, managed to miss that last shot, which would have gotten him a free kill. Well, not free, I suppose it worked for it. Hopefully that LAV doesn't come back to haunt him later. Now we're going into the spawn. He is actually out of bounds at this point. Here you should be looking at your minimap and trying to figure out how you can cut off that Jeep. No gunner currently. I think I might have waited for that teammate to get in. So EvilJenius is taking a big risk here, looking down the left side of the street before checking the right side, because their spawn is back there. If that enemy LAV had been back there, it simply could have fired a couple of rounds into his backside, and that would be the end of EvilJenius. I think what I would have done instead is try to cut off this armored car by driving through Echo. He would have cut off this armored car, and he would have freed up forces from Echo much earlier to go assault Delta. Now, if this guy stays in here, he's toast. That second HE shot's going to sure as heck destroy that. Again, that's the power of the HE shell. If you can find a target at close range, it's usually a much better choice. So let's see what we got for our choices right now. It looks like blue team is down by about 140 points, so this is quickly heading in red's direction. They still have 3 points. At this point, I would probably go and try to take Delta rather than trying to take out Charlie. Although, by taking out the pillars on this side, you make it easier to take out the pillars on the other side. If these pillars are gone, you don't have to keep shooting at it. I like to call the trees on this building the building's reactive armor. Once you see the tops have been knocked off those pillars, they're effectively dead and you can stop shooting at them. Right now he's busy wasting all of his ammo on this building with himself in enemy territory. So the problem's going to be if a tank or any other armored vehicle shows up, he's not going to have anything to deal with it. The other problem is that he's making himself exposed on the minimap when the enemy team has just taken Echo. So you see that tank right there coming from Echo. It's going to very much shoot him in the sides and rear now, and he's going to be exceptionally sad. Yep, not paying attention to that tank at all, and this last shot's going to kill him. Waiting for it. There we go. So many lessons to be learned there. Number 1, don't blow all your ammo in enemy territory. Number 2, pay attention to your minimap. Number 3, don't ignore your attacker. Alright, back with EvilJenius. Thankfully, it looks like one of his teammates had managed to spot the mines, so he can clean those up easy. It looks like we're trying to defend this point from red. Currently only down 120 points, so it's gotten a little bit better for blue here. They're keeping it at least close enough that they could come back. Cleaning up the last of the mines here. I don't think I would go up here simply when I see mines coming down or mines being placed, because there could always just be mines being thrown on your tank at that point. You could just as easily cap the point from below. The other mistake he makes there is that even though you saw those mines, you haven't been looking behind you to see if there's any enemies at this point. Finish one candy bar before starting another. The first thing I would have done was be to look behind me and make sure nothing's coming. Nothing's on the reaches over here, because if that had been an engineer or somebody with C4, you would be dead now. All they would have had to have done is throw down slams or C4 onto that ramp, and this tank would be no more. Furthermore, if they had been on the back of the ramp with a rocket launcher, they would have had a perfect shot at the rear end of this tank. When I outnumber enemies at this point, I like to capture the point below first and then go up top. That makes sure that any enemies I take care of can't respawn immediately and come back after me. Furthermore, it makes sure that the reinforcements are taken care of as quickly as possible. Alright, and it looks like the building just came down, so that's going to give blue the opportunity to hold on to Charlie now, since red has held it for the majority of the game. It looks like there's far too many enemy team members up on top of these buildings next to B, so this might actually be the beginning of the comeback for here this round. I see far too many people far too often sitting up on top of the buildings in Shanghai, and they lose the game for their team because they're not participating. Now looking at the tabletop, let's see what we have going on here. Looks like there's a lot of enemy armor over at Echo, which isn't necessarily spotted at this point because tabletop is God vision, and Red just took control of Charlie again. So when Red has C and the building's down like this, all the spawn points for C are on that street. So you want to take care when you're in armor because you could have enemies spawning behind you in the pillars or in the rubble. And if it's an engineer, the first thing they're going to see is your tank. That's something to keep in mind when you're trying to defend C on this point, is that all the enemies are going to be spawning from the road and coming in from that direction. So even if you've captured C, know that that's a long run and there could still be enemies running in from the street at C. So I like to be exceptionally careful when I'm coming to and out of that rubble pile. So EvilJenius is aware of this tank right here, and he gives the tank a perfect shot on his side, which is not a good idea. He only takes 21 damage there, but now he's got 2 pieces of armor and he should be worrying. At this point you want to back off. EvilJenius is committing suicide here to get that kill, and it's just a bad move. So what could EvilJenius have done better in that situation? First, he didn't needlessly need to put himself in front of the tank. He had a clear shot between the Gabions. Second, when the LAV appeared, it was time to back away. Unless you have somebody repairing your tank, you're not going to survive that much damage. Back with EvilJenius. Looks like we have the P90. No laser with a coyote. Can't tell the barrel that he has equipped just yet. I spent a little bit of time with the P90 and I'm not a big fan yet, but I could get used to it. So with as close as that target was, I think I would have simply hip-fired the P90. The PDWs are fantastic at hip-fire for the most part, and at close range is definitely something you want to consider. Definitely sprayed that a bit too much, hoping to come up and kill. The P90 is a lot like the A91 that has a lot of left and right deviation, so you definitely don't want to hold down the trigger on this weapon. It's definitely one of those weapons that might pay off in microburst. Very exposed here with low health. I think I might have spent some time sitting in the corners there and waiting for my health to come back. Because if this LAV sees him, it's going to be game over. And it is. Back with EvilJenius, and we are again still trying to protect and or assault the Echo Point. Looks like we have 2 pieces of enemy armor here and some mixed infantry. Personally, I think I might run across the waterfront first to try and take out those tanks. Looks like he's having the same inclination here. Not sure about the placement of those mines. Definitely playing a risky game here, being out in the open. It's a good thing that BMP isn't paying attention. Yeah, that mine placement isn't going to do much for him. I think this is one of those situations where you could use the slams a bit more aggressively against that IFV. Once you saw that the IFV wasn't paying attention, that's your motivation to go in and kill it. Think of slam mines and C4 as a knife. If you see that your enemy isn't paying attention, that is a clear indication you should go in and get your knife kill. I'm not really sure why he's deciding to take this thing head on and take fire damage at the same time. Maybe he's just trying to work this corner a little bit better. Honestly, I would have stayed up on that balcony and tried to go ahead and destroy it from up there, because you can get a better angle on it and do some more damage with your shots. When you're thinking about armored warfare, you should always be thinking about how you can work the angles. But it looks like he's going to come up with this vehicle anyways. In that case, it was probably not useful for him to destroy that vehicle, since it looks like the enemy had gotten out. And when the enemy gets out and you have friendlies that are right next to it, you could possibly repair it, possibly take it, possibly turn it against the enemy team. It's a huge swing that you should always take advantage of. So the game is still about 100 points apart. It's gotten a little bit closer, but the blue has stayed consistently behind where red has been at in this game. Currently, we have more than enough defenders here at Echo. I would probably move on to Delta or try to hang on to Charlie. This would be a great place to have put those mines, simply because it's a nice choke point on the map. And again, he's out in the open, being overly aggressive with low health and not healing himself up. Do I have to really say anything about using a PDW against a sniper rifle at long range? Do I? So we're still pushing E. Looks like we're trying to keep a lid on the armor coming out of their base. At this point, I think that's sort of a lost cause, and that's sort of the punishment that you receive for holding down the P90 right there, is that you just will not come up with a target at all. It's a lot like the A91 in the sense that you have to tap fire it or burst fire it in order to compensate for that left-right deviation. And here EvilJenius pays for hosing it earlier and has no ammo to kill this support with. Continuing to try this defense at Echo, it looks like we're about halfway to having this point taken from us. There's definitely an enemy up here. Taking fire from the front sides. We're on the mini-map now, so they know you're here. I think my next move might be to try to get a few slams down on that armor from up above. It looks like he might try this, but I think he's just doing it a little bit too far down. Or do it much closer to where the tank actually is at. Because at this point, doing it in front of the tank, you can definitely see those. If he's paying any attention whatsoever. And ooh, he might not be. Nope, he just came up with it. They just got cleared off the map. This is really bad news here. Thankfully, the boat's shown up to give a little bit of support. The map's pretty much contention. That time that blue has held on to 3 points has really paid off because it's given time to blue to catch up in this match, and it's only a 30-point spread now. Again, we're trying to use the P90 at long range, not the best idea. I think on this map I would pick a carbine for the engineer class. Specifically, the AK-5C has been really good on this map for me. Probably not a whole lot you could have done about this death, simply because those enemies weren't spotted and came out of nowhere. Alright, looks like we're in the boat now. The match is pretty much all tied up at this point, so blue team has done a very good job of getting 3 points and hanging on to them for enough time to close that gap that had formed up. At this point, it's anybody's game. And hats off to EvilJenius, who, while not being terribly effective at E, has been effective enough to help his team push themselves towards victory. If you're going to spawn in the boat, I would highly recommend spawning with a repair torch because the slams are just probably not going to do you much good on this map, or at least in this boat. I think it's kind of interesting that there's a lot more you can do as the US side on this map with the boat at Echo than the Chinese can do towards your alpha point. Now we're back at Echo and trying to take it. Looks like blue team continues to hold 3 points, so this might be the point at which this game turns around. For EvilJenius, my recommendation would be to switch out that P90 at this point. It's clearly not working that well for you here. And again, just laying on that trigger, and he's going to need every one of these 51 bullets in order to kill that enemy. Definitely something to work on, EvilJenius, is tap firing and burst firing your weapons. Definitely something you're already a master at is snapping up armor as it appears. I really can't stress enough how important it is to take armor when you see it. You don't want to let enemies take that armor and use it against your own team, as it again is a huge swing. Now he did a good job there of checking the enemy spawn to make sure nothing was coming, but at the same time it probably would have been better to back into this point rather than going face first. So at this point, you know that your threats are going to be coming from the spawn. You probably don't want to be showing your rear end to the enemy team, because again, you never know when an LAV or a tank is going to show up. Whenever you're taking a point like this, you should be aware of where the threats lie and where they could be coming from. The enemy spawn is the most obvious location where they could be coming from, but you should always be keeping your eyes on the minimap to see if targets just like that appear. Because one enemy could potentially become many enemies when their squad spawns on them. Here, EvilJenius does a good job of taking advantage of both the splash damage from the AG shell to take out that enemy, and his minimap in order to find that enemy. Definitely has a vendetta against that sniper from earlier. Blues come up with 4, no, now 3 points on the map, so this game is quickly turning around in their favor, actually. Again, paying in the minimap, EvilJenius has been able to come up with a kill that he might not otherwise get. Now we can see that there's a mine on the minimap. I'm not sure if EvilJenius is aware of it or not, as he's driving right next to it. And that's the risk with mines. If it's a slam, it's going to go off when you drive next to it, just like that. So when you're in a vehicle, always try to pay them a little bit of heed, because it could be the end of you. They're doing a pretty good job of defending this point, but I would probably get on the actual flag cap that continues to flash me. This is kind of an exposed position to try and cover this point from, simply because you're in the way of the enemy spawn and you could be facing tanks or LAVs again shortly. He does have a gunner though, so he can afford to be a little bit more aggressive here. However, he needs to think about getting on that burn if he wants to cut off the enemy reinforcements. But now the enemy's taken the point, and we've seen 2 rockets being shot at this tank, so it's time to back away carefully. While he is getting out of there, he's making a huge mistake in showing his rear end to the enemy. Especially on tanks, that rear side takes twice as much damage as the front side. So unless you're really in trouble or you have active protection to cover your exit, you really want to try and back away, literally back away from your enemies. This is a much better angle to be working Echo from, but you have to hope that your gunner is paying attention to your rear side, which he's not really, but you have enough teammates there. Looks like Alpha and Bravo are being capped out. Nothing that you can really worry about at this point since you're committed over on Echo, but if you're able to be freed up, you definitely want to go back there and take a look. No reason to be overly aggressive here. You can use the splash damage from your cannon to try to take out this infantry. Again, opening himself up to unnecessary damage here, and his tank's going to be marooned because of it. Another point at which it would have been helpful if he had earlier picked a torch coming out of that boat. So it looks like EvilJenius had his best run of the game there. Managed to tie it up as far as his score is considered. Still really trying to hold on to Echo, and he's actually been a really big help here at this point for his team. Really good job there getting in the rocket on the rear of the tank. I think it would have been better for him to have done that with the BMP that came by earlier. Excuse me, IFV that came by earlier. But that's a sign of a good player when you're able to learn from your mistakes and adapt your game for later. The Syrah really is one of my favorite rocket launchers simply because you can both hip fire it and aim down sight it. And if you get really good at it, you can also take out aircraft with it. I really do think it's probably the best rocket launcher in the game by a couple of miles. So looking at the overall strategic picture, it looks like Echo and Delta's in contention. Echo's pretty much well in Blue's hands. Charlie's in contention. This game is probably still going to go Blue's way at this point, but if Red manages to come up with 3 or 4 points here and holds it for a good amount of time, it could definitely still be a win for Red. While I was talking about the strategic situation, looks like EvilJenius has switched to the driver position for the tank. He manages to get out in time to save himself, but he really is putting in too much effort trying to hold down the spawn on the enemy team when they're all over the rest of the map. And this is a mistake I see a lot of players make, where they'll try to charge into the enemy spawn and try to hold them down there, and it just does not matter because the rest of the map is still free game. So whenever I die, I try to ask myself, is it worth it for me to try and repeat the same thing I just did? For the most part, the answer is no. And this is because I usually get frustrated and I often make the same mistake twice. So since it still has mines, one of the good things you could be doing here, rather than running out into the line of sight of that Chinese IFV, it would have been to throw down mines in front of it, right next to it on that corner, and possibly come up with a kill. But like I said, repeat the tactic, repeat the mistake. Still doing everything we can do to hold on to Echo. Remember, when you keep doing the same tactic over and over again and expecting a different result, that's called insanity. Back in the gunner and spot in the boat. Again, would have spawned with a repair torch if possible, because it could definitely have been a help there for his teammate. The boat just exploded. Might not be the best idea to charge in here all alone. At this point, 2 pieces of armor, unknown amount of infantry on Echo. I would be playing this extremely slow and carefully. Again, throwing down mines in the line of sight of a tank, probably not the best idea. He could have waited and thrown it on the tank there and might have come up with the kill on that. But at the same time, you got to be saying to yourself, is this strategy really working out for me? I've died 4 times in a row. Perhaps I should consider something else. Perhaps I should spawn at Charlie's. Perhaps I should spawn at Delta or try to take Delta. You just have to reevaluate your strategy as you're going on in the game. So it looks like we've jumped back in the tank, and Charlie's being taken, Delta has been taken, but at this point it's pretty much game over for Red. Not seeing that mine that he's about to run over, which has sort of been the theme for EvilJenius this game. Definitely got to press Q as much as possible and keep an eye out for mines in the road, especially if they're already spotted like that one was. No reason to run over a little bit of extra ordnance if you can avoid it. So it looks like before the game's over, we're going to get in one more tank duel here. My personal approach would probably be to take out that tank right there, which he is doing. You can see that that tank has the green light on it, which means his APS is on, and you want to wait until it's off in order to shoot him, otherwise you're just wasting ammo. Are we going to come up with this tank before the end? It does not look like so. Alright, so that was EvilJenius' round. He ended up going 12 and 15. Not a good game for EvilJenius. Did much better the previous round in his tank. My recommendations for him would be, if you're having problems at a point, consider another strategy. If the enemy is strong in one spot, go to another point. Another thing to keep in mind is look at your mini-map more often. There was a couple of times where you were caught by enemy tanks that you didn't need to be. Be mindful of where you're showing the enemy to shoot at on your tank. If you're showing them your side, if you're showing them your rear, they're going to take a lot more damage than you would otherwise. Finally, burst that P90. You don't need to be firing every one of those 51 rounds in order to kill a single enemy. EvilJenius did a really good job of playing the objective despite all that, and his efforts at E also helped his team to come up with the win. So that's this week's episode of Over Your Shoulder. I hope you enjoyed it enough to give this video a like. If you'd like to see more Battlefield 4 videos, please subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to be featured in a future episode of Over Your Shoulder, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, YouTube, and I'll see you next time.